Hi, Helen. Hope this finds you well. Hope you're doing all right now that you're not part of the swim group anymore, but I thought I'd go over the video. The first thing I can see is a little bit of a crossover in the front. You can just tell how your hand's going a little bit too or past the center line of your head. You can also sort of see that your hips and shoulders just start rolling at the same time. So remember, we want to keep that core as straight and or steady as possible. So just making sure your hips roll with your shoulders and not crossing over. Other than that, the body position doesn't look bad from this view. The head angle looks pretty good. But we'll take a look from the side view here in a second. So the first thing I noticed with the side view is you're cupping your hand quite a bit. See how you're bending at your wrist? Ideally, you want to keep your wrist as straight as possible and just pull. So you bend at your elbow, but not at your wrist. Other than that, it doesn't look too bad. You're not bending the elbow or anything like that. So just fix that wrist thing and then work on getting stronger. Hi, Rebecca. Hope you're doing well. So the first thing I noticed with your stroke is it just looks a little tight. You look a little rigid sort of through your shoulders. It just doesn't look loose and flowy. So just take a couple breaths, relax. I don't know if you do it better when you're doing no breathing, but just try to think of that kind of idea. And also I want you to watch when you take your breath. See how the whole body kind of turns towards the side that you're breathing to? So just making sure that we're rotating instead of twisting to get that head out of the water. Part of it might be that you can see here how low your head is. So maybe you're just having to try to force yourself to turn a little bit too much when you take your breath. So try to get your head up a little bit higher, not necessarily looking up, but just kind of get it up a little bit closer to the surface. And also work on getting those elbows up for the catch because you're pulling with a little bit too much of a straight arm for my liking. All right, hope that helps. Thanks. All right, hi Denise. So just looking at your stroke, the first thing I kind of noticed is just it's a little choppy. It means that you're just kind of looks maybe being a little bit too aggressive with your hand entry. Just you don't need to smack the water every time your hand enters the water. Also is that your head is moving around quite a bit. It's kind of looking back and forth as you take your stroke. It's kind of moving around. So I'd like to see that a little bit more steady. And also from there, and we'll see from the other view here that your legs are a little bit low are low in the water, which I think is kind of your limiting factor. Because looking at the stroke, it doesn't seem like there's a ton sort of going on. Like things seem to be in good enough position. Maybe dropping your elbow a little bit there with your left arm, but just making sure we try to get those feet up a little bit closer to the surface. And when you take your breath, you can see that you lift your head first to breathe before you actually turn your head. So that might be actually contributing to your feet going low. All right, hope that helps. Thanks. All right, hi Debbie. So watching the stroke, the first thing that I noticed is actually your lack of roll to the left side. Yes, just getting myself turned around. You roll well when you go to the right, but to your left, you never actually go past being flat. So you're just not utilizing your hips enough. Everything is moving fairly well together, but there's just still not enough body roll. Your arms can be going so much deeper and getting so much more water, but now you just end up spinning away because you're just not rolling. And you can also see, I think the camera pans out a little bit, but you can see that your left arm especially is coming up a little bit early, coming more around your hips than sort of down by your thighs. So it's not too bad. The hand angle isn't too bad in the front. I'd like a little bit more sort of bent arm, elbow high catch, but it's not too bad. Just more you can keep the elbow up, the better. Hey, Connie. So going over your stroke right now, at first you can kind of see that there's a little bit of a crossover up front. It's not too bad, but just something that could be fixed. Also, you're turning your head a little bit when you take your breath. It's not just rolling with your shoulders, which means either one, a little bit more body roll, just to allow yourself to get your face out of the water while you turn. And also there's just a little bit of a disconnect between your shoulders and your hips there. Coming back, not the greatest camera angle as we're going back. Good head position. Hard to see a little bit more. I'd like to see you get a little bit more bend in your elbows, sort of get the elbow up and fingers down a little bit more instead of pulling with the straight arm. But it's hard to get a sense of what the rest of the body is doing from this view. So I hope this helps, and thanks, and see you later. All right, hi Tamara. So looking at the stroke, the first thing that I notice is you're really outstretched. So at any point in any sport, if you completely outstretch yourself to the point where you're as far as you can go, your balance is way off. So stuff like that can just sort of throw you off a little bit. And what I also want you to watch is your head. So you take your breath, and when your head goes in, it actually goes back towards the other side a little bit. So just making sure that you look down and then turn your head when you take your breath. You don't need to look over to the other side at all. The other thing I noticed is just a very straight arm pull. So I'm sure if you've watched everyone else, you sort of heard it, right? Get the elbows up and fingers down, and that'll help you to pull yourself straight forward instead of bobbing up and down as much. So I hope that helped, and you have a nice, strong, steady kick, so keep that up. Hi, Carm. We'll wait for your push off here. So one thing that I noticed from this point of view is a little bit of a crossover, but what I think will really help you is think about trying to enter with your pinky first or your ring finger first. This should help you actually enter straighter and not allow yourself to cross over, because you can see if you're entering with your thumb first and the whole hand kind of has to come around before you get going again. So on the way back, I'll address your bob. So I really think it's when you take your breath, your head's just coming up a little bit too high. So it comes up, and then after you take your breath, and then you just bury your head. So just keep on thinking about rotating your shoulders to turn your head to get out of the water, and then put it back in, and just with rotating, not lifting up and down, because the more you lift up, then the deeper you go. All right, hi, Kevin. Hope everything's going well. So the first thing I noticed with the stroke is that it's looking a little tight through the shoulders, although it's not too bad. There's also still a bit of a crossover you can see there, especially with your... Gotta get myself turned around. Right hand, it just doesn't look like it's entering straight forward. Taking a breath, your head's getting buried a little bit, kind of like Carm, where you take your breath and your head just sinks a little bit too far down. From this point of view, what you can see sometimes is that you're still pulling with a fairly straight arm, so your elbow never really gets above the hand. So I'd just like to see you start with that a little bit earlier, just getting those elbow high and those hands pointed down, and I think that'll help. Hi, Andrea. So we'll get going with the swim. The first thing that catches my eye with swimming here is you're entering with your thumb first with your left arm quite a bit. Ideally, I'd like to see you sort of entering with or thinking about entering with your pinky and your ring finger first, and I think that'll really help smooth out that front part of the stroke. Maybe a little bit too far extended as well. Just the more you reach, the less balanced you are. Finally, nice to see somebody do a flip turn. So you're not putting up the stop sign. I think it was you that kind of put that stop sign up before, so you're not doing that anymore, which is good. The one thing I did notice, though, is that your pull is pretty shallow. So I'd like to see your hands go a little bit deeper in the water. I like the fact that you're pulling straight back, but a little bit deeper in the water would help you to get that much more. All right, Stuart. So the first thing that I can kind of see is that there's a little bit of disconnect between your shoulders and your hips. You can kind of see how your shoulders turn and then your hips kind of follow. So remember to try to initiate that roll from the hips, and that'll really help you stay together and get rid of a bit of that fishtail. Other than that, you can kind of see in that last little, or sort of drag into the wall, is that your elbows are still a little bit lower. A lot of that is just a flexibility thing. So as I've mentioned with a few other people, making sure that you keep those elbows up and just work on that flexibility so you can get that pull as early as you can, because you have a nice strong arm, a lot of strength, and we just have to utilize that all the way through your stroke.